Welcome back to Spoiled Vision Movie Recaps. Today, we delve into a 2011 comedy drama titled The Intouchables. Be warned, spoilers are ahead. In the heart of Paris, one night, Driss chauffeurs his employer Philippe. Frustrated by the traffic, Driss decides to push the speed limit, maneuvering through the streets recklessly, ignoring traffic signs. This reckless driving grabs the attention of the police, and Driss wagers €100 that he can outrun them. However, a surprise police ambush under a bridge foils his plans. Unperturbed, Driss ups the stakes, betting €200 that he can secure a police escort. The officers demand he exit the vehicle, and he adopts an offended demeanor, explaining Philippe's urgent need for medical attention. The officers find evidence supporting his claim when they discover a wheelchair in the car. As they approach Philippe, they witness him feigning convulsions. Believing it to be a genuine emergency, the police forgive the speeding violation and offer to escort them to the hospital. Driss celebrates his victory by playing September by Earth, Wind and Fire. After their arrival at the hospital, Driss enjoys a smoke with Philippe, their police escorts having left. Driss promises to take care of things and quickly departs with Philippe, evading hospital staff. This remarkable friendship had its roots many months ago. Philippe and his assistant, Magali, conduct interviews to find a new caregiver, but the candidates provide unimpressive and standard responses. Their routine is disrupted when Driss barges in prematurely, seeking signatures on papers that would disqualify him from employment benefits. His candid, somewhat rude demeanor and advances toward Magali stand out, and Philippe, amused by Driss, invites him to return the following day for the signed papers. Driss heads back to his modest neighborhood, where he attempts to take a bath amidst interruptions from his younger siblings. Only with the help of his older sister Mina does he manage to complete his bath in time. As they await their mother's return, Driss observes his brother Adama disembarking from a suspicious car. When questioned, Adama insists he was at school, then hastily leaves with his bag, deepening Driss's suspicions. In the evening, their mother arrives and presents Driss with a stolen Fabergé egg, claiming he had been on vacation when questioned about his whereabouts. She, however, does not welcome him warmly, given his 6-month disappearance without a single call. It seems like he's treating her home as a hotel. Fed up with his lies and with other children to tend to, she promptly kicks him out, instructing him not to return. Driss spends the night sharing a smoke and snacks with friends from the neighborhood. The following day, Driss returns to Philippe's residence to collect his papers. Yvonne, the housekeeper, greets him and provides a tour of the house, explaining Philippe's daily routine. She also shows him the room he would occupy, complete with a private bathroom. Driss can't help but fixate on the bathtub before being summoned to meet Philippe. Philippe presents the signed paperwork and a job offer. Driss agrees to a 1-month trial, with Philippe doubting he'll last even 2 weeks. After settling into his new room, Driss begins learning how to care for Philippe. His responsibilities include stimulating Philippe's legs, assisting with the wheelchair, showering, and changing clothes. It becomes awkward when Driss discovers that he must help Philippe put on high stockings and even clean him after using the bathroom. Despite his initial resistance and complaints, Driss eventually accepts these tasks as part of his job. Later in the evening, while enjoying a snack on the rooftop, he's interrupted by Philippe's daughter, Elisa, and her boyfriend, Bastien, searching for a private spot. Driss refuses to share his beer and promptly kicks them out. Driss gradually adapts to the daily routine with Philippe, learning from early mistakes like handing the phone to Philippe instead of placing it to his ear or forgetting the baby monitor during bath time. He also learns to sort Philippe's mail into various folders. While most letters are open for Philippe, there's a set of private ones he's not allowed to touch. When Driss encounters a flyer advertising female escorts, he decides to keep a separate file for them instead of discarding them as Philippe suggests. His new life isn't all work, as Driss continues trying to charm Magali, though his attempts are fruitless. Occasionally, he calls escorts to join him in bed. One morning, Yvonne discovers some potentially dangerous items in his bag while scolding him for being late, but she refrains from commenting on them for now. Driss's task for the day is chauffeuring Philippe, but he refuses to treat him like cargo in the back of a van. Instead, he opts for one of the rarely used luxury cars. Initially skeptical, Philippe suggests a more pragmatic approach, but he soon warms up to the idea of a faster, less dull ride, despite Yvonne's disapproval. When they attempt to leave the building, a neighbor recklessly parks at their entrance, ignoring the clear sign indicating it's prohibited. Driss wastes no time and confronts the neighbor, physically intimidating him until he moves his car. Philippe is impressed by Driss's actions, though Yvonne continues to disapprove. They proceed to a museum, where Philippe intends to purchase an artwork that Driss deems unworthy due to its abstract nature. Later, Philippe meets with a relative who expresses concerns about Driss's violent tendencies and discovers his criminal record. Philippe, however, values Driss for treating him without pity and for their shared sense of humor. After another unsuccessful attempt to charm Magali, Driss has dinner with Yvonne in the kitchen while listening to Philippe dictate a letter to her. Yvonne claims it's a private conversation and turns off the baby monitor, revealing that Philippe has a pen pal named Eleanor, with whom he corresponds through letters that he didn't allow Driss to open. Their relationship is solely epistolary. Speaking of matters of the heart, Driss teases Yvonne about the constant gazes she receives from the gardener before retiring for the night. As Driss tries to sleep, he hears unusual sounds through the baby monitor, signaling that Philippe is struggling to breathe. Unable to ignore his suffering, Driss rushes to Philippe's room, offering comforting words and a wet cloth to ease the situation. Philippe eventually drifts off to sleep, but wakes up shortly after, expressing a need for fresh air. Without hesitation, Driss places Philippe in his wheelchair, wraps him in blankets, and takes him for a nighttime stroll by the river. It's the first time Philippe has experienced Paris at night in a long while, and in this relaxed moment, he confides in Driss that medication can only do so much, sometimes leading to phantom pain. As they pass by some girls, Philippe also reveals his inability to please a woman due to his condition, but he can find satisfaction in having his ears massaged, as they are sensitive zones. As the threat of phantom pain looms, Driss decides to share one of his joints with Philippe, who is initially hesitant but ends up enjoying it. Subsequently, they visit a restaurant, where they engage in playful banter over a meal, leading Philippe to open up further about his life. He recounts meeting his wife during their student years, their marriage, and the heartache of her enduring 5 miscarriages before being diagnosed with an incurable terminal illness. They adopted Elisa during these difficult times. Philippe reveals his enduring passion for competitions, extreme sports, and speed. Paragliding had fulfilled that passion until a crash due to bad weather resulted in a broken vertebra. Despite his condition, he considers living without his wife his true handicap. After more lighthearted moments, Philippe realizes that Driss has successfully completed his 1-month trial and is now officially hired. However, Driss must start by returning the stolen Fabergé egg, a gift from his wife, marking each of the 25 years they spent together. The next day, Driss speaks with Mina, who's somewhat offended by his lack of communication, aside from requesting help in searching for the egg. She also mentions receiving calls from the police at their home. Following that, he visits Adama, who confesses to being found with 30 grams on him. Driss suggests taking him to lunch, but Adama declines and departs in the same suspicious car from before. Later, Driss is allowed to be present as Philippe dictates a letter to Eleanor for Magali. Driss finds the prose uninspiring and suggests a more direct approach. He discovers Eleanor's phone number on one of the letters, leading him to call her, prompting Philippe to have a verbal conversation with her for the first time. They become engrossed in their discussions, even during a trip to the opera, where Driss amuses himself by mocking the costumes. The next day, Driss convinces Philippe to exchange pictures with Eleanor, selecting one that features him in his wheelchair. Elisa interrupts his painting session, seeking cigarettes, and teases him for his artistic endeavors. Annoyed, he kicks her out before visiting Philippe, who is currently requesting Yvonne to change the selected picture to one taken when he wasn't quadriplegic. Yvonne discreetly places the picture inside the escort file just before Driss enters, complaining about Elisa and urging Philippe to discipline her, a sentiment Yvonne shares. Philippe agrees to talk to Elisa, but he's also surprised to learn that Driss has been exploring his artistic side. As the days pass, their friendship continues to flourish. Driss takes Philippe to enjoy the snow and accompanies him on a run. Philippe buys Driss his first suit, and while Driss listens through the baby monitor, Philippe reprimands his daughter. When Driss completes his first painting, he shows it to Magali, but her reaction is a slap when he attempts to kiss her. Nonetheless, Philippe appreciates the painting and promises to attempt to sell it. They continue to enjoy each other's company, indulging in activities like upgrading to a faster car, sharing joints, and even hiring escorts together. Philippe's birthday arrives, but he isn't enthusiastic. Every year, he pretends to be surprised by the party, which becomes a dull routine with relatives who only visit on that day to ensure he's still alive. While guests enjoy live classical music, Driss searches for Elisa, who is in tears in her room after taking some of Ivan's pills, not achieving the desired outcome. She's upset because Bastien broke up with her, calling her names. Elisa asks Driss to talk to him, a task he accepts in exchange for a fee. Meanwhile, Philippe shows Driss's painting to a relative and persuades him to buy it for 11,000 euros. Driss returns to the dining room and converses with Ivan, who reveals that Magali is in a rocky relationship with someone named Fred, giving Driss a glimmer of hope. As the party winds down, Philippe introduces Driss to some of the most significant classical music compositions, but Driss can only respond with humor. Once the band finishes, Philippe plays Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire on his iPod and begins dancing in the middle of the floor. He's an exceptional dancer and encourages the other guests to join him, which Philippe thoroughly enjoys watching. Later, when preparing Philippe for bed, Driss opens Eleanor's latest letter. Eleanor has sent her picture, revealing her attractiveness, and suggests they meet next week when she visits Paris. On the day of the date, Ivan and Driss help Philippe select the perfect outfit. Since Ivan will be accompanying Philippe, Driss uses his day off to visit Bastien, threatening him until the boy agrees to apologize to Eliza, bring her croissants daily, and fix his appearance. Afterward, Driss visits his mother at her workplace, watching her from a distance. At the restaurant, Ivan and Philippe wait for Eleanor, who is significantly late. After an hour of waiting, Philippe gives up, calls Driss to pick him up, and leaves the restaurant without noticing Eleanor's arrival at the same time. On the same night, Philippe takes Driss on his private plane and gives him the money from selling the painting, filling Driss with immense joy. The following morning, they head to the countryside, where Philippe decides to go paragliding, convincing Driss to join him. Initially reluctant, Driss ends up enjoying the adventure after some initial anxiety. Upon their return home, they find Adama waiting for Driss. Adama's scars on his face prompt a scolding from Driss, but Adama still won't disclose the details of his life. Driss makes him wait in his room and calls Mina to assure her that everything is okay before tending to Philippe. However, Philippe is not yet ready for sleep. He shares a painting with Driss and inquires about his family, despite Driss's initial reluctance. Driss reveals that Adama is not his biological brother, and his parents are actually his aunt and uncle. They brought him from Senegal when he was 8 because they couldn't have children. His real name is Bakary Bassari, but he was called Idris due to other kids having the same name. One day, his aunt miraculously became pregnant, and after his uncle passed away, other men and more children entered the family. Philippe points out that, just as Driss had spoken to him about Elisa, Adama also needs discipline. As a result, Philippe fires Driss so he can be with his family, and not spend his entire life caring for an elderly man. The next morning, after Bastien delivers the daily croissant with an improved hairstyle, Driss packs his belongings and prepares to leave. Magali comes to bid him farewell, introducing him to her significant other Fred. Magali's revelation that she isn't interested in men leads Driss to give up his advances. As he leaves the house, he returns the baby monitor to Ivan and teases her for playing a prank on him about Magali. In response, she hands him the escort file he had initiated, and he is disappointed to discover that the picture he chose is hidden inside. Driss discards the file, but keeps the photo for himself. Outside, he encounters a car blocking the entrance and asks the driver to move, despite no longer working there, based on a matter of principle. Several hours later, the two brothers pick up their mother from the station. Meanwhile, at the house, Philippe sits down to have dinner with his new, rather dull caregiver, who he dismisses without even taking a bite. With Ivan on a date with the gardener, there's no one to reprimand him. As the days go by, Driss returns to his former life. Driss reconnects with his old friends and ensures that the guys from the suspicious car no longer bother Adama. During a job interview for which he lacks the required experience, Driss wins over the employer by emphasizing his pragmatic approach and using the art knowledge he gained while working for Philippe. This successful approach secures him a position as a driver. Meanwhile, Philippe remains discontented with his new caretaker, consistently in a bad mood. One night, he declines assistance from anyone in the house for his phantom pain, prompting Ivan to call Driss, requesting his presence. This situation leads to the encounter with the police and their eventual escort to the hospital. Following their adventure, Driss drives Philippe to the coast, where the sight of the sea helps Philippe find some calm. At a later time, Driss takes care of Philippe's overgrown beard before taking him to a restaurant for lunch. However, he departs because someone else will be keeping Philippe company that day. Driss wishes him luck and finally returns his egg, relieving Philippe's concerns about being alone. To his delight, Philippe's date is Eleanor, who is pleased to see him and doesn't mind his wheelchair. In reality, the true Count Philippe Pozzo di Borgo resides in Morocco, having remarried, and now has 2 daughters. The real Driss, whose actual name is Abdel Yasmin Selou, runs his own company, is married, and has 3 children. The 2 men continue to maintain a close friendship to this day. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification for more movie recaps.